So when you're going into Revit, if you haven't opened it before, on the school computers, it'll be located under Autodesk, and you'll find a Revit 2020 icon. So if you just click on there and let the program open up. Again, you need to be nice and patient with the program because it is a bigger program and it takes some time to open up. So if you've borrowed a computer from the DSBN to work at home, those computers will be a little bit slower than the ones here at school. But again, it takes a little bit of time for the program to open up. If you sit there and you just continue double clicking on it because it's not opening up fast enough, then you're going to end up with some issues. So when it opens up, you're going to see a screen that looks like this. What we want to do is we want to go to a new. So actually, I can actually click back here, and I can go File, File New, and I want to do a new project. Now we want to find a template that works for us for what we're trying to do. So basically, we're working in feet and inches as per the project criteria. So I'm going to drop down here, and I'm going to go to Architectural Template, and I'm going to go Browse. And I just want to, there's one here that says RTE Default. So I'm going to just double click on the default. It'll now become my template file here, and I'm going to say OK. So once the program opens up, you'll notice along the top we have a bunch of tabs here. We have an architecture tab, structure tab, all kinds of different things here. You're only going to really get into architecture tab and the structure tab. If we have time, I'll show you guys how to just do a quick little site plan to do massing and site. And if we get a chance, we're going to get to doing, hopefully, sending some things to the cloud for rendering. But for now, we have all our tools up top, similar to any program, obviously. We have a properties view here. This tells us all our various properties of whatever we're working on at that given time. So if we're working on walls, then the properties of the walls would show up here. If I'm putting windows, doors, other things in, then this properties interface here will change depending on whatever you're working on. Right now, I'm in a floor plan view, or all views. You notice you have these little markers here. Okay, what these represent is your orientation of your building. And this becomes very important because I've said that Lake Myer, for instance, is on a certain side of the property. And I believe that's the south side of the property. And that your great room must face the lake. So this sets up as your north. So see, it says view elevation north. This is my east, south, and west, right? So we want to make sure that when you're drawing your floor plan that you keep it within this view area. If I start drawing something out here, then when I start looking at my views and my elevations, part of your building will get cut off because it's not in the view range of the northeast, southwest markers here. So always make sure when you eventually start drawing your walls that you draw it within this area. You'll notice that I have, in my project browser, I have floor plans, ceiling plans, elevations, and I have a bunch of other stuff here. Close the ceiling plans. So we just hit the little negative button, close it down. We only want our floor plans and our elevations showing for us, okay? Sometimes people accidentally start drawing floor plans on their ceiling plans, and it causes issues when you try to do some modeling. So we only want to be working with our floor plans and our elevations. So the first step to create levels in this software is we pick one of our elevations. So because east is the first one in the list, I always just kind of double click on the east elevation. You'll notice that my properties now changes, the information here. I can set some of the scales and things if I want in here, but we're not going to get into any of this stuff in the this project properties interface. Now you'll see that I have 2 levels that are already in there that have been created by the template that I selected, that default template. You'll notice that my level 1, 0 feet, 0 inches, and I have level 2 at 10 feet, 0 inches. It's in feet and inches, so I don't have to do anything unit-wise. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start naming at least these 2 items what they are. Because if you have level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, as you're trying to draw on different levels, it becomes confusing. So you want to name the levels what they actually are. So our grade is always our 0. So grade reference point, everything's referenced from grade, and it's always 0. So we're going to go to where it says level 1, and if I double click on level 1, I can type in grade. If I hit enter, you'll notice it said, would you like to rename the corresponding views? So right now, level 1 reads as level 1 in my floor plans. When I hit yes, you'll notice it's now changed to grade. Now what I want to do when I'm creating my levels or working with my levels, I want to basically deal with the next element above grade and all the elements below grade. So because I have level 2 right here and it's set at 10 feet, I'm going to rename that first to what my next value is. So if I have grade, then my next element of construction that I have to create a level for is my top of foundation walls. In the outline that I gave you, I've told you that the distance from grade to the top of foundation wall is 6 inches. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to level 2 and I'm going to type in, I can just abbreviate it, I'm going to go top of foundation wall. Enter, it's going to say, yep. So now it's changed it over here in my project browser to top of foundation walls. And I have to change this value from 10 feet to 0 feet, 6 inches. If I hit enter, you'll notice now that my level lines drop. So that distance between this line, and you can see it kind of shown over here, is 6 inches. So that represents the distance from grade to the top of foundation walls. Now, you'll notice that my top of foundation walls here is kind of covering up my grade. So what I'm looking for on one of your elevations is that I am able to go into that elevation and I can clearly see all of your levels in your work. So to fix this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add, you see a little squiggly thing here, I can add an elbow. When I add an elbow, it now adds a couple grip edits that I can now drag stuff around to then move some things that allow me to read that. What I want to do is just put a kind of a little bit of an angle on here. I want this line to extend a little bit past the actual text so that it kind of underlines and defines what that level is. Now that I have my 2 levels, I am now ready to add the other levels that I need to do for the project. I'm going to start with my below grade items. So I have footings. I have provided you with how far below grade the footings need to be. Okay? Our footings in Canada, generally, unless you're up in the permafrost areas, have to be a minimum of 4 feet below grade. So up here, if I go back to my architecture tab, you'll see that there's a level icon. So I'm going to click on my level. And now it brings into my level tools. So what I want to do is there's an option to create a line, and that'll just create another level at 19 feet right now. Like, see how I'm just going like this? So if I went up here and I clicked my button, it would create a level at 10 feet above my top of foundation walls. But what I want to do is I want to use the next icon here, which is called pick lines. When I put pick lines in, now I can go over, there's an offset value here, and I can type in the value in which I want to offset that line. So for the case of our underside of footings that I said is 4 feet, I'm just going to type in 4. So I have 4 feet as an offset. And that's 4 feet below grade will be the underside of my footing. So if I put my cursor over top of that grade level, you'll notice how the dotted line goes below. That's where I want my footings to go. But if I went a little bit further above, you notice how it pops it up. So depending on above or below the level you want to create the next level, you kind of have to adjust. So I'm going to click there. It now creates my level 3. It's negative 4 feet. So it's below grade. It's referenced at negative 4. And again, I'm going to rename this. So I'm going to go underside footing. I want to rename it. So now I have an underside of footing level at negative 4 feet. The next level I have to create will be the top of my footings. And in the outline that I gave you, I told you guys that the thickness of the footings are 6 inches, I believe. I might be wrong, it might be 8, but I believe it's 6. Okay? So again, under my offset, I'm going to change this 4 feet now to 0 feet 6 inches. And I'm just going to click on my underside of footing level, and because the top of footing obviously is above my underside of footing, I'm going to get it so that my dotted line's there. And now I'm going to be able to come here. The first thing what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on, well, you know what? I'm going to change the name of this. So this is going to be top of footing. Yes. And this is where if I kind of escape out of here for now, I'll come back into it. So I want to click on this one here. Can't quite see my elbow. Oops. So let's try this one. I'm going to put this elbow in this one a little bit first. So now I can see the elbow for the 4 foot one. So I'm just going to drag this down a little bit. Drag this across. And to keep things nice and neat and clean, I want to kind of have a similar angle to what this one is, right? I wouldn't do something like super steep or super shallow. Kind of keep things pretty consistent and neat and readable. And then this one here, I can just drop straight down again. And again, cleaning things up so I can read everything. I want to be able to clearly read every level that I've created. So now I've dealt with everything below grade. Those are the levels that I have to create. I have to create my underside of footing and my top of footing. Because when I create my walls for my foundation, for instance, those foundation walls would be eventually drawn on my top of footing level because those walls are poured on top of the footing. So now I got to go back to my above grade stuff. So the next level above my top of foundation walls will be my top of main floor. So I have a floor system that we learned about in our wall section lessons that sits on top of a sill plate and sits on top of the foundation wall. So I can do one of two things, and this would add an extra level or layer into your work. It would lead to a better project if you did it this way, and it would be arranged differently depending on what exterior finish you're going to do. But I can do my next level, which is actually my sill plate. So I can do, again, I can go back to my architecture tab, go to my level, pick my line. I have a sill plate that is 1.5 inches. When you have a half value or any fractional values, when I go 1, put a space in, and then your fractional value. So I have 1.5. If I pick this, you'll see how it's going above. So that's my 1.5" sill plate. I can add my elbow in. I can drag this up so it's above my top of foundation wall. You'll notice that this little datum marker doesn't line up with this. So to fix that, there's this little dot here. I can click and drag over here. If I click on this and drag it, you'll notice that it'll line up. You get a little dotted line here. It'll line up with the other ones. And then again, I got to kind of drag this out this way, keeping it roughly the same. And then I'll rename this top of sill plate. There's my top of sill plate. Again, I can just kind of adjust this a little bit so everything's looking nice, neat, and clean. And you'll notice that the value isn't 1.5 inches. Every value of each level is in reference to my grade of 0. So my top of foundation walls is 6 inches above grade. So my top of sill plate, because it's 1.5 inches thick, will be 7.5 inches above the grade. Once I have my top of sill plate, then I have to do my floor system. So we have our floor joists and our subfloor. This becomes our main floor. This is where you guys will be drawing all of the walls for your cottage. So again, I don't think I specified what the floor system will be. So again, we've talked about 2x10 construction in the lessons, which are 9.5 inches. We talked about subfloor being 5/8 thick. But what I'm going to say for this project, if everyone just uses a 9.5 inch value for their floor joists and use 3/4 of an inch for your subfloor, it just makes the fractional values in your work a lot easier. So if I have 9.5 and I add 3/4, I have 10.25 inches. So I'm going to do my next offset value of 10.25, and I'm going to offset my sill plate level because that's the next level. Level 6 comes in there. Again, put your elbow in, drag stuff around. Take this and drag it over. And rename my level. So this is top of main floor. Again, that top of main floor level is now 1 foot 5 3/4 inches above my grade. The last level I have to create for this lesson that you'll need to at least create as a minimum will be your top of main floor walls. So you have to tell the program when it's drawing walls, because everything you draw, all the walls that you draw in the software, you'll be drawing in 2 dimensions. The third dimension comes in because you'll tell the program that you want to start the wall on your top of main floor level and extend it to your top of main walls level. So we have to create that final level to tell it, basically you're giving it the third dimension information for it to create the walls. So again, I'm just going to change my offset value. So I have told you that the minimum height of the walls needs to be 9 feet. So I'm going to change my offset value to 9 feet. I'm going to pick my top of main floor level. It now creates my level 7. I can name this top of main walls. And then again, I'm going to have to put my elbow in a little bit. Drag this across. Drag this out. Drag this out. And that's how I change my wall. And you'll see, right? Distance between main floor and the top of my walls is 9 feet. And that's it. So to do it properly, the minimum amount of levels is actually 7 levels. I told you guys earlier that it was going to be 6, but 7 levels is what we should set up. And now you're ready to move on. After you do this, you're ready to move on to the next step, which will be creating our custom wall types. So I'm going to stop doing lessons now. I'm going to allow you guys to create your levels for your cottage. And again, if you decide to do some taller walls, for instance, for your great room area or other areas of the cottage, so say you wanted a 10-foot or 11-foot or 12-foot walls in your great room, then what you need to do is you just create yourself another level. And again, you do the offset from your top of main floor level to whatever value you want it to be. And then you name it top of great room walls or whatever. Okay. If you want to get creative on the outside of the building, so say you want like the first 3 feet all the way around your cottage to have stone on it. Okay. Well, then you'd have siding above it. What you would then do is create a level that in a stone accent around the perimeter of your building that's 3 feet high is considered to be called a stone skirt. So you'd create a level that says top of stone skirt, and you'd set it at 3 feet, 4 feet, however high you want it to be. And then usually the stone skirt is capped off with a sill to cover it up, to then transition from the stone to the siding or whatever you're putting above the stone. So then you'd create a top of stone sill level. Stone sills are usually 2 inches thick. Okay? So depending on how creative and complex you want to get with your design, you may have to establish additional levels in order for you to draw everything you need to draw. And that's really how easy it is to set up your levels in Revit. So I'm going to let you work away on these levels. And in about an hour, I'm going to come back and I'm going to do another lesson on how to create your custom wall types.